Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is Dylan Kemna with OptiCall, along with Michelle Pelletier from MDprospects. Today's presentation.
Hi,
Hey, Michelle. Sorry, just making sure I got the right screen up.
Perfect.
There we go. All right, today's webinar is how to maximize internet lead conversions through consistency and rapid response. Like I said, this is Dylan with OptiCall. We also have Michelle Pelletier, the COO of MDprospects. Hope quite a few of you are currently MDprospects users, so hopefully you're familiar with the CRM software. Michelle, I'll let you take it from here. Give a little background information about your company and your service.
Certainly. So we're located in Portland, Maine. We've been around since 2007, and our product is created to help practices capture online leads or referrals and other leads that are coming into their direction, and making sure that you're maintaining conversations with them, that you know what your conversion rates are, that you're identifying where they came from, and making sure that they don't fall through the cracks. Thank you, Dylan.
Excellent.
And we also, I'll intro Dylan into his part, because the reason we're doing this today is we've been working with OptiCall for a while, and they have this fantastic product called Capture. So I'm excited for everyone to hear more about what he has to offer.
Likewise, I appreciate that, Michelle. So if you guys aren't familiar with OptiCall, we've been around for a little while now, since 2002. Our specialty was around converting inbound LASIK phone calls in the beginning. We've expanded into other specialties, and glad to see that we've got multiple specialties on today's call, where we work with really any kind of elective medical practice that's spending marketing dollars to generate patients. We want to make sure that they don't miss out on those opportunities, maximize the opportunities that are coming through. So we work with plastic surgeons, LASIK surgeons, stem cell therapy practices, cosmetic dentistry, really anything that usually has a patient worth more than $1,000. And we're all about just trying to enhance that initial patient experience. And we've recently partnered with MDprospects on their CRM solution to offer a web lead response program, as Michelle mentioned, called Capture. So we're going to talk a little bit about why we started it, and I'll get into what we're going to cover today here. I think that's on the next slide. Yeah, so what we're going to cover, we've got some stats on trends in medical marketing. We're going to share the medical marketing outlook from OptiCall, show you where the lead sources are coming from. We've got some data to support the importance of lead response time. I know you guys are all probably familiar with that concept, but it's always nice to see statistics to support that within your practice. We're going to show you the roadmap that OptiCall uses to keep our system scalable, to follow up with these patients and do it consistently. Along the other piece of the roadmap is the actual process that OptiCall uses internally, as far as our logical progression to maximizing these opportunities for the practice. And Michelle's going to share some tools on how to maximize the MDprospects platform with features like two-way texting and autoresponders. So actually, before we go back, I just remember we're going to do we also have a few polls today. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the first poll before we go to the next slide. Just to get some feedback from the audience before we jump into this here. So the first poll is, how quickly does your practice respond to internet leads? It's a multiple choice. Michelle, I'm not sure if you can see it on your screen the way this is set up, but the options are within 15 minutes, within 1 hour, within 1 day, over 1 day, and not sure. We'd love your feedback. If you guys don't mind sharing with us. And I'm just going to leave this up for a few seconds. We've got 2 more polls to get through after this one. So the majority of everybody has chimed in. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and share the stats. So I'm not sure if you can see this on your end, Michelle.
I can.
Screenshot. So, okay, perfect. So it looks like 44% of you are within 15 minutes. That's amazing. 25% within an hour, 19% within 1 day, no one over a day, and 13 of you are definitely being honest if you're not sure. So we appreciate that feedback. And the next slide, we'll get into why that's important. I'm going to go ahead and launch the next poll, though, which kind of correlates. So the next poll is about what % of your internet leads convert to consultations at your practice. So this isn't necessarily those that convert to surgery, just from the internet leads that you're generating, about approximately how many of those do you feel like you actually get booked for a consultation? So the options are 0 to 25%, 26 to 50%, 51 to 75%, 76 to 100%, and not sure. So I'll just read this up for a few more seconds here. All right, go ahead and close this out. Share the results. Can you see it on your end, Michelle?
Yep. And that's about what I was expecting for an answer.
Yeah, it sounds like we have some rock stars on the call today, and we definitely do have some very reputable practices from the registration list. So 0 came in at 0 to 25%, which is great. Half of you came in the 26 to 50% range, 22% between 51 and 75%, 22% between 76 and 100%, and then 6% not sure. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring that up is we're going to talk about our medical marketing outlook from OptiCall in terms of an inbound phone call. Usually for OptiCall across the board, we're converting at above 70%. With the web leads, we find that they don't typically convert as high, that just connecting with them can be a challenge, where at OptiCall, we found that our connection rate is about 50%. And of those that we connect with, we have about a 60% conversion. So I'm not sure if you guys are just factoring in the ones that you connect with, or if you're factoring all the leads, but we just want to set the right expectations, because sometimes doctors in particular are always on the same wavelength. When they see a lead come through, they feel like a web lead is qualified as a phone lead. And really what it's all about is just trying to get that message across, that it's really important to get to them as quickly as possible. So we appreciate your feedback there. And then one last question to kind of validate the answers that we got is just wondering when the last time you guys have done a web response assessment in your practice. And some of you may be saying, wondering what that means. So OptiCall actually offers a free web response assessment where we'll fill out a contact form at your website. And we're really just looking for response time and whether it's personalized or automated. Kind of paints the picture on if there's an opportunity for OptiCall to potentially help your practice. But we're also going to be offering a free web response assessment at the end of today's webinar. If you would fill out the survey, we're going to have a couple offers on there for you, both for the assessment and some of the information that we're going to cover today. So I'm going to go ahead and close this poll. Share the results. So looks like 17% of you said within the last month. That's great. 0 in the last 6 months, 6% within a year, 6% over a year, 72% not sure. And I was telling Michelle, one of the reasons that we do these assessments kind of set up that way, when OptiCall also offers free recorded phone assessments. And when we ask the practice what their conversions are, they typically tell us they're converting at about 70%. But when we do our free recorded phone assessments, we'll find that the 5 calls that we place over 2 weeks typically result in lost leads where there's no name or number ever captured. So it kind of paints a picture that in a lot of cases, the practices feel like their conversions are higher, but they may not even know how many opportunities are coming through that they might be missing. So we appreciate your feedback on all that. Go ahead and jump into the next slide. I forgot to mention some of the housekeeping. If you guys have any questions during the presentation, feel free to submit them on the sidebar there. We'll try to free up some time at the end, and we'll answer questions as we go. when we're able to. Is there anything you want to add to that, Michelle?
No, that's fantastic. And those were kind of the answers that I would be expecting to see. For the same reason that you said, seeing the agenda of who was attending, there's some practices here that I know that are on their leads instantly, and that's exactly what we want to see.
Absolutely. So this slide right here, these stats come from OptiCall's medical marketing outlook. So if you're not familiar with OptiCall, we track our stats annually. We release this outlook at the beginning of the year. There's going to be an offer for the full brochure. We can send in a PDF file at the end of the presentation today. But the data here on the right is probably what's most significant and what kind of validates today's webinar. As far as the biggest change from last year's stats to this year's stats was the increase in the internet lead as a lead source. And there was almost a direct decline in referrals, which, I mean, take it for what it is. This information is what our callers give us when we ask them how they heard about the practice. So it's only as good as the information as the prospective patients provide. And referrals are definitely significant. For me personally, I feel like with the access to information, that more people are doing the research online through customer reviews and just all the information that's accessible, that they're not relying as much on their personal network. And even back in the day, it used to be you hear somebody on the radio and you call them, where nowadays it's more, maybe you hear them on the radio, you're at a party with your friends, somebody mentions they had LASIK with such and such, then you do your research online, maybe you ask your peer group on social media, and then maybe you Google them on the internet. So it's definitely a multifaceted approach, but the biggest trend is the growing presence of internet leads, and that's where OptiCall wants to stay dynamic with where the customers are communicating. And MDprospects has a great system as far as being able to track and follow up with those leads efficiently. Whereas I guess the only missing part that MDprospects can't provide is the actual follow-up themselves, other than the automated follow-up. So it's an area where OptiCall might be able to help your practice. Michelle, I'll let you jump into this slide.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously from all of the practices that we work with, we do get an opportunity to see what people's response times are, how they respond to them, and what really seems to work. And one of the things, and we took this directly from a study, but our data also backs it up, is that the odds of calling to contact a lead decreased by over 10 times in the first hour, which I know all of you are aware of. And the best way to think of it is somebody's on their lunch break and they're, Googling something, they find what they want to make the appointment with, and you have pretty much that hour to reach them, or else you've just lost a pile of those leads that may not actually respond to your call anymore because now they've moved on to something else. And every minute counts, and that's just a very important thing. And I'll share this slide with everyone afterwards as well. So one of the things that we do in MDprospects is we have tools for decreasing the lead response time. One of the things is if you have an online form, allow leads with questions to opt into a text message reply. They might find it easier to text with you than they do answering a call, especially if it's something about pricing or scheduling questions. Making sure that you're aware of new leads via alerts and checking your MDprospects regularly, and making sure with your website company that you have all the proper notifications sending to the right people. Have live chat on your website, so if somebody just wants to have a conversation but isn't ready to get on the phone and go further in that's available. Email automation, task automation. Task automation, of course, would be to remind you when to engage, and also to remember that time is valuable when responding to a lead. So the timing really matters, and you can always use your MDprospects to look at when the lead came in and to when you took an action on it, and not to see that as a, oh no, we're not hitting our goals, but to see it as instead of, okay, so how can we improve this response time? What are our barriers right now? And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have this call today with OptiCall. Is often a barrier for people is simply having someone available to answer that call or that online lead. And so use the data in your MDprospects to determine which days and times make hitting the goals the most difficult. And then work as a team to find those solutions. And so, Dylan, if you don't mind sliding to the next slide.
Sure.
On here is just some great data from, I believe it's from MIT, and the odds of calling to contact a lead decreased by over 10 times in the first hour. So this is a study that they had done, and you can just see right here within the first hour, obviously within the first 5 minutes, that person's still thinking about you. By the time you get down to 40 minutes, they've already, scrolled to something else on their Facebook feed, or started a new conversation, or, they're playing Candy Crush and no longer engaged with their email. Whatever the case may be, that instant reply makes a huge difference. And obviously we have automated emails kick out of MDprospects to people, but that's not enough. And email isn't going to do the work for you. There needs to be somebody, a human, behind that, whether they're using the texting tools, whether they're picking up the phone and calling them, or whether they're making sure to send a more personalized email with, you asked a specific question and here's your specific answer. When can we talk? Dylan, do you have anything to add to this slide?
Yeah, I was just going to hop back to the last slide in terms of monitoring times of day what the response time is. And so a story about one of our practices where when we rolled this out, we were originally just thinking about following up on all the leads that come through for a practice, but we actually had an aesthetics practice in Texas that generates enough lead volume where it made sense to bring OptiCall in just for after hours. So they have enough lead volume. I think we get 40 to 50 leads outside of their regular business hours. Because OptiCall is available 7 days a week. It's not 24/7, but we're available until from 8:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, and from noon to 6 on Saturdays and Sundays. So if there's enough volume on your practice to support that could be a great starting point to walk before we run. And I think everybody kind of gets the idea. If you guys want more information about lead response times, there's a great link out there. If you just Google MIT lead response study, it just validates what we're talking about. But it's really important to respond quickly. If you don't, people have moved on. Say they submit a lead on Friday, they may have bought a car over the weekend and their mindset has totally changed come Monday. So Google calls it a micro moment. It's that critical moment of truth. You want to be able to connect with that person while they're emotionally compelled to submit the form or pick up the phone and call. And you want to be able to do it consistently. So this slide right here is the roadmap that OptiCall uses for our capture program. So whether OptiCall is the right fit or not for your practice with our capture service, we want to try to keep this educational too in terms of what the process is, because to grow any scalable business, it's important to create systems to be able to deliver the same way each time. So for us, it's basically somebody submits a contact form, they get a confirmation email that's automated. We make our first call out attempt, and through MDprospects, it allows us to keep it HIPAA compliant, where we can email or text the patient depending on their preferred contact method. So in your contact forms, you can actually have a drop down to see if they have a preferred method of communication. We do find that the phone calls convert at the highest rate currently, but not everybody's in a position that they can take a phone call, maybe if they're in class or at work. So best case scenario, we book the appointment for the practice. The prospective patient gets the appointment confirmation. The practice gets notified in real time. That's the number one goal. Number two, if they're not ready to book, we do offer to send out information to try to maximize those opportunities. They'll get a personalized follow-up email. And then it does include 2 drip emails just to add some extra touch points. And if you're already on MDprospects, chances are you probably have a more robust campaign, so you can have your campaign kick in there as well. And then the third scenario is if we're not able to reach that person on our first attempt, we'll set an interval based on what your practice requests, usually 2 to 3 days when we make the second outreach, and kind of the same flow depending on whether they're ready to book or not book. And then they get the automated emails. Hopefully that's pretty straightforward. Michelle, do you have any questions or anything you want to add?
No, I mean, the process is what people should always be trying to achieve, whether it's in their MDprospects or with their capture OptiTrack software, always visualize your flow and know what your end goal is. So like the way that you have the 30 days is where they get that drip campaign email too. If you don't see people converting, look at your process at any point and see, internally, are you getting to that point where you're even sending the 14-day email? And if not, what are your roadblocks and barriers? So when you have a visual like this, it also really helps you understand where things might be getting bottlenecked at your practice.
Great point. So the next step, as far as the consistency, this is just a screenshot of the software that OptiCall uses. And as far as our focus on the actual calls, our number one goal is to schedule the consultation, not to sell the procedure or surgery over the phone. We want to just create an exceptional experience to get that caller or lead to the next step. And we do it through our process. We call it logical progression. I'm not going to go through every screen on our software, but the 4 key steps are introduction, exploration, education, and closing. So I'll just kind of briefly run through a quick mock call. So it would start with like, on an inbound call, thank you for calling OptiCall. This is Dylan speaking. How may I help you? On an outbound call, similar process. Hello, this is Dylan with Jones Vision, trying to reach such and such. As far as the introduction part, we typically, we've already got the name and the numbers from the contact form, but we would ask the patient if it's their first time contacting the practice. We also ask how they heard about the practice. Under exploration, our clients get to set up these exploration questions up front, but it'll vary with a plastic surgery practice. But a LASIK practice might ask questions like, what types of problems are you having with your vision? Is it distance or reading? We might ask, are you wearing contacts or glasses? And then we even qualify what type of contact lenses. Most practices have protocol before somebody comes in for that initial step. Under the education tab, that's where we paint the picture of the next step, not just mention the consultation. And I can't tell you how many practices just mention the consultation. They rarely ask for the appointment. So it's important to talk about what happens during that initial step in terms of how long they're going to be there, who they get to meet with, if the consultation is free, or if there's a cost associated with that, and any expectations you might want them to have. Like for a LASIK practice, it could be if their eyes are going to be dilated and light sensitive afterwards. For a plastic surgery office, it might be before and after pictures. That's also the step where we typically bring up pricing only if the caller asks. So a lot of practices have questions about the pricing question on whether it's worthwhile to give that out or not. And from OptiCall's perspective, we think it is worthwhile to bring up pricing because you have such a limited window to build trust on these phone calls. So whatever it is that you want to say, it's important to script it out in advance. So everybody's singing from the same sheet of music and everybody answers that question in a very similar fashion. Whether it's a range or a flat rate, you want to validate that. And then after we cover the pricing, we do have kind of quick keys under FAQs for promotions and payment options if necessary. But our goal isn't to sell the procedure. Our goal is to sell the next step. So we kind of focus back towards that next step, which is typically the consultation. We might even ask, have you ever been in to see if you're a candidate for this procedure? Then we paint the picture of what happens, and then it's really important to actually ask for the appointment. So many practices, I don't know if it's because the coordinators have the fear of rejection or they just haven't been trained properly. They typically don't ask for the appointment, which is really important. If you have conviction about what you're offering, you should feel like you'd be doing the prospective patient a disservice if you're not asking for that appointment to maximize these opportunities. After that, we go into our closing where we capture all the demographic information that the practice wants, and then we go into our web-based calendar that syncs with MDprospects, which also syncs into some of the practice management softwares out there. And we actually have another partner that offers integrations into some of the practice management systems that MDprospects is not yet integrated with. So that's kind of a lot of information. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Michelle, before we jump to the next slide?
No, that was all great info. I've been looking at the smiley face that you have on here, practicing my smile while I talk. I like that.
I'm glad you brought that up. We do that intentionally. In fact, we have mirrors for all of our coordinators so they remember to say things with a smile, because it definitely makes a difference. And that's in a lot of our presentations.
Feel the difference right now because I'm smiling. One of the things I wanted to touch on is you were referencing about how sometimes somebody might not feel comfortable with the follow-up process. And I know that to be true from lots of people that I work with across the country, where often when we're trying to help the practice make the second engagement because they've tried the first time and nobody responded, the thing that I most commonly hear is, I don't want to be a pest. And that disconnect and the structure that you have here is great, because that disconnect, but sometimes when they're afraid of being a pest, so they don't want to do more than one passive outreach, is a lot of money was invested to get that that lead to reach out to you. So you do need to be more than just a passive outreach. And I love that you're scripting and everything, because that's what you need to help people build confidence. They're not going to be natural salespeople, and sometimes that's what it feels like, and it's uncomfortable in that role. So having scripting to help people know how they can let it be more of an educational experience where they're guiding somebody and bringing them towards the practice and the service.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually a really good point, because the mystery shops that we hear, sometimes we more, this is more on the phone side, but when we do a mystery shop to a practice, we might have issues just getting through. But if we do get through, the people that answer the calls, they want to help, and they feel like they're helping if they're answering somebody's questions, where they're not really taking control of the calls. Where you might just ask about the price for LASIK and somebody just says it's $2,000 per eye. Is there anything else I can help you with? Because they're ready to move on to the next call. Or you might get an experienced counselor who knows a lot about the procedure and gives you a lot of information, maybe spends 5-6 minutes on the call with you, but they still typically do not get a name or phone number on that inbound call, and they do not invite them in or ask to send out information, so they result as lost leads, where having a roadmap in place kind of empowers the counselors/coordinators to know exactly where to take each phone call. So it's really important to have those steps. And if you guys want the full demo of our OptiCall software, we have that in an email format as well. That's not included on the survey today, but if you guys add a note in there, I'd be happy to send it out to you. And we're also going to give you our contact information afterwards. Let you jump into this next slide, Michelle.
Absolutely. So I just want to talk more about tools for engaging your leads. So one thing that we get asked a lot, and people, it's great to have a wonderful email campaign in place. And it's important to have that email campaign be specific to why the person reached out to you. If they filled out a form that was about LASIK, don't send them information about dry eye, which I know sounds like common sense, but often people just inundate their leads with so much other information from what they reached out to them. And the other part of that is it's great to have a wonderful drip campaign, but that is not going to do all the work for you. It does not matter who makes your emails. It does not matter who's sending them. At the end of the day, the average open rate is between 20 to 30%. So if you think of that, you've had 100 leads today that reached out to you, and you're counting on your emails to do the work, you're only talking to 20% of your audience. So again, that picking up the phone, that texting them, listening to what the customer wanted for their form of communication. And it takes more than one interaction to engage a lead. So you need to clearly communicate the reason you're calling. You filled out our frequently asked questions form, and I wanted to see if you had any additional questions. You want to build a relationship, like using the comment section in MDprospects to, if you know that I referenced that I have a dog named Finn while we were talking, put that in the comments section. So the next time you talk to me, reference that. If you know that I live on the west side of town, put that in there. I know that that can seem like maybe excessive, but you are building a relationship, and you are needing to use more than one interaction to get this lead. So automation's wonderful, but automation only does a piece of the job for you. And it's okay to qualify your leads. So we were talking about the data and knowing when maybe it's better to have OptiTrack call your leads after hours, on Tuesdays, whatever that might be. It's also okay, and actually one of the people that's on our calls right now did a wonderful job of identifying her high-value forms, knowing that the practice only had so much capacity for outreach. They went ahead and flagged their forms, their online leads, from the ones that were high value, like the ones that maybe they were spending marketing to bring in, the ones that they were also at the same time having to increase odds of that person turning into a consultation. So that way when they go into their MDprospects, they've qualified their leads, and they always go for the high volume or high impact leads, the higher, the ones that have a higher odds of converting first. So if you had 5, get those high rated leads first. And it's okay to qualify your leads. It's much better to qualify your leads than to spend your limited time and your limited resources chasing the one that you already know might not be quick to convert. It doesn't mean forget about them, just qualify and come up with a strategy.
Yeah, that makes me think about one of our digital marketing partners, Michelle, only has us follow up on the web leads, where they get huge lead volumes from Facebook, but the conversions from Facebook just aren't nearly as high. So they'd rather focus on the higher converting opportunities before we explore kind of moving to some of those social media platforms that get a lot of leads, just don't convert as high. So that's a great point.
And I mean, self-tests are a good example of that. Self-tests are wonderful lead generators, but they're not as far down the pipeline and as ready to commit to LASIK or to commit to whatever they were taking the self-test about always. And also the marketing behind it and how that got placed in front of them really does matter as well. Versus somebody who's filling out a request a consult or asking about LASIK pricing. It doesn't mean you disqualify those leads. It just means you make sure to use something like Capture to get your high volume leads or your high chances of converting leads into a flow that's going to get immediate response. Perfect.
And we actually studied, I was just going to say, one of the enhancements we've made to Capture is we're now breaking down the conversions from the different contact forms to be able to help qualify those leads, as you mentioned, because it is pretty significant.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be overwhelming if you get a high volume of leads from one avenue, but those leads aren't leads that are going to quickly convert, and it's using up the energy. It's really important to have a game plan and identify the time of day and the lead type. So just talking a little bit more about tools to use for engaging your leads. Newsletters are a great one as well. So I know we talked about our drip campaigns and our auto emails, which most of you that are on this call do a good job of utilizing that feature. But newsletters are where you let people opt in to learn about other things about your practice. This is the opportunity to tell them about local events that you're going to be a part of, about other services, and let them opt into that so they can always feel like a part of your community, and it's fresh content. And then, of course, the automated emails with the targeted content, automated tasks to make sure that things stay on your radar. We have appointment reminders. There's the chat bot, which is always fun. Event management, so you know which seminar, which event, which webinar you attended or got the leads from that had the better or higher conversion rate. Referral management, we have our OD CRM, so you can manage your relationships with your ODs directly in MDprospects, but at the same time, your leads team is making sure that the people that they've sent to you are being nurtured and educated so they can go ahead and convert. And, from online scheduling to appointment reminders and real-time reporting, those are other tools that are very important for this too, especially online scheduling. Make it easier for them to book directly into your system what they want for an appointment. And the real-time reporting is very important because you really need to know what works. And if you're not looking at your reports and you're not paying attention to the data, then you're kind of just going through the motions without looking for where the cracks or the holes in the process might be. So these are some of the tools you all have, and I'm, of course, happy to go over any of these in your MDprospects with you or how you could be better utilizing these. And these are also things that Capture and OptiCall can help you with as well. Dilla, I'm ready for the next slide.
Great.
So I'm just going to talk just a little bit about this reporting that I'm talking about in MDprospects. The data and the reporting can help practices solve the following questions. How can we convert more leads? How do I know what is working? Is our process working? Is my team able to accomplish their goals? And does my team know their goals? So by using the reports, you can try to figure this out. Track the dips and peaks in the numbers. Save your searches so you can go back and easily check on your high priority marketing efforts to see what's happening there. If you know that you have a very set process that your whole team's trained on and everybody's following it, but you're noticing everything's plateauing and your conversion rate, it's a good time to go back and look at that and see if there's anything missing or anything that can be changed, because you should always be improving your process, everything around you, just like that slide that Dylan showed earlier, where, you know, obviously print ads are all the way down at the bottom these days. But there's people out there that still, you know, are putting their money into their yellow pages and not looking at the data to realize that that's not giving them anything for return on investment. And then the keep the visualized workflow, this is just more of a tip that I really think can help anyone. That flow that Dylan had earlier, I really think it's important to, on a regular basis, to, as a team, look at something visual about what your actual workflow is with lead conversion, because it helps you remember where you're heading to. The end of it's to get them to convert and how many times you're going to talk to them and reevaluate that on a regular basis. And your marketing and your outreach, these need to be working hand in hand. So your marketing team and the team that is actually reaching out to the leads need to be communicating, because if your marketing team has a Facebook ad that's running or is working on landing page or anything that's running, letting the people know that are going to be handling the inbound leads exactly what the messaging is very important. Just like the people handling the inbound leads, getting an opportunity to share with the marketing team what kind of information or what kind of questions they're getting or roadblocks, so you can continue to work together. And the practices that I see with the highest conversion rate are always the practices that the marketing and the outreach team are very well blended and work together as a team. Thank you, Dylan.
Sure.
Do you have
especially on the promotions. It's important that they're all in the know on different promotions they're running, which doesn't always happen within the practices. So that's a great point too.
Right. Yeah, because there can definitely be a disconnect from the person who's actually answering it to what's out there right now. And there could be multiple ads, but if you don't know what the even visual of that ad looks like, it can be hard to be the one responding to it. Mm-hmm. And another thing is really knowing what is your return on investment, what is working. So this is just an example of a pie chart, but in MDprospects, you can add in your marketing costs so you can get a price per lead. But if you're looking at something like this and you see Google is 8.3% of my leads, wonderful. You can drill down to, well, what's the conversion? How many of those ended up becoming leads? And then I could go even further to, all right, but this is what my cost per lead is. Let me just actually focus on just those leads and go look at the data. And then maybe you'll see things like, wow, on Tuesdays, we're really not able to respond to people. Or we're getting all these great leads that are coming through, but we only do one form of outreach. Or our team is being aggressive. They're doing everything they're doing. They're following the process to a T, reaching out to every single person, but the conversion rate's really low. So what else could be going on here? Are we targeting the right audience? And again, that's where outreach and marketing talking together can be great, because sometimes it's just something's reaching the wrong audience and the outreach team is just getting a whole lot of people that don't want to talk to them or are the wrong people. They're the wrong age. They're not expecting LASIK to be a certain cost. They're, you know, offended if somebody's asking about Botox because they don't feel like they're at the age that they wanted that, or misconceptions in marketing that didn't quite get them to where they need to be. So communication and looking at your data is great. Thank you.
We actually have a question that's relevant to this slide. Is what is the typical cost per lead for a practice? I'm kind of interested in if you have a number in mind, Michelle. I can't have that.
Yeah, that one actually can be a little bit hard to answer because it has to do with your market. So obviously practices like that might be in Atlanta or Houston have to spend a lot more in their radio ads, so their cost per lead is much higher versus like where we are in Portland, Maine. Our radio ads probably are much less expensive. But on average,
would you say a couple $100s?
Yeah, for the pay-per-click, for sure. For Facebook, sometimes it's like under $1 per lead. Some practices get a high volume of Facebook, and that's a great thing to look at. So if I see my average cost per lead on Facebook is like $1 or $2 per lead, but you'll also see your conversion rate is much lower.
Yeah.
And then on your pay-per-click, maybe you're seeing like $150 to $200 per lead, but your conversion rate, they're having surgery. So it's very easy to then see like, wow, a few conversions, I've covered my costs here.
Yeah, that's kind of the premise of OptiCall is like, one of the things that we'll look at when we go through an evaluation is what's your cost per lead, but even more so, what is your revenue per average patient to make sure that, and how many leads are you generating each month. And then we'll also kind of take a look at the no-show rate and the conversions from lead to consultation, and then the conversions from lead to surgery. And then it really becomes kind of an educational process. And if the numbers work out, then it might make sense. If not, we're always happy to create that awareness by doing the assessments and just kind of showing our process. So when the timing is right, that a practice knows that there's a solution out there. I'm getting a little promotional relative to the ROI piece. You want to jump to the next slide?
Yeah, and that was a great question too, because it's really definitely regional for what the average cost per lead is and what type of marketing effort. But it is something I encourage people to really make sure that if they're not utilizing that in MDprospects, they should be, because it's a great thing to pay attention to, and it's a part of the piece of the puzzle of how to qualify your leads. If you have leads that are like, let's say, $500 per lead, and your team only has X amount of time to respond to leads, either get signed up with Capture and have them call those leads so you can get your return on investment, or prioritize with your team to call those first. And so just talking about the conversion process, one of the common bottlenecks in the conversion process is people will be candidates, whether they took a LASIK self-test and it says you're a candidate, or they take a cataract eval test online and it says you're a candidate, which obviously they don't, or they come into your practice and they have their consultation. Now, most practices are very good at getting people from consult to treatment, but there is always going to be that percentage of people who come in and they just need to think about it. If scheduling issues, there's a competitor down the road that advertised a different price, so they left a little confused thinking that it was going to be like $4.99 an eye. So in there, make sure to, this is another part of using MDprospects. For one thing, be excited for them. From that point on, you can have the drip campaign that's sending to them that you haven't booked your treatment yet. We'd love for you to come on board. We'd love for you to book your treatment, but also be excited. Say, we're so excited you came to our practice. And this is where that personalization over automation makes a huge difference. Saying, Dylan, it was so great to meet you. I know you had a few things that you need to work out. I just wanted to let you know I have openings in May, and I can't wait to see you again. All the best with your dog, and I'll see you soon. That excitement changes everything.
It's how you say it, not necessarily what you say. I think it goes a long way.
Exactly. So if you're counting on automation again, you're just getting 20% of those people. The automation is great because you want to make it really easy for them to find that call to action of how they can go ahead and schedule their treatment, making sure that that information that maybe they weren't comfortable telling you is financing, maybe with scheduling issues. So those automated emails should hit those common areas for you. But at the same time, pick up the phone and call them, send them a personal email, and be excited for them. And that helps improve the conversion.
You ready for the next slide?
Sure.
Okay.
Sorry, I was getting really excited because I was getting excited for
Well, we've got a couple more here. So appreciate everybody hanging in there. I know it's late for you on the East Coast.
But this is very simple. So knowing the life cycle of your lead. So this is kind of what I wanted to close on is For MDprospects, our tagline is Capture, Communicate, Convert. We're a software, we're a tool here for your practice to utilize to improve your conversion and to identify if you can't respond to your leads quickly. There's great solutions like Capture to help you get there. But also, at the end of the day, no matter what automation you're using, you need to have engage your employees in the process. Everybody needs to be a piece of the process, and your conversion rates will go up. And you need to know what's working and what's not working to always grow and improve. So Dylan, that's everything I have on this slide. If you have anything you want to add.
Well, that just made me think of a saying that somebody shared with me, that the grass you water is always the greenest. So if you focus on your employees, you empower them, maybe incentivize them, you've got a great culture. It definitely shows through, and things are more transparent than ever, especially with online reviews. So it's all about doing the right stuff for your patient, for your people, and your business should prosper if you're doing those things. I think this is our last slide before we get to our closing, but just to kind of validate what we were talking about with the web response examples. I know everybody on this webinar is responding within 15 minutes, but this is kind of asking you guys to accept the challenge. If you feel like you're that on point, this is a way to be able to measure, to be able to manage. And it's not to get anybody in trouble. We understand that a lot of the people that are managing these leads wear multiple hats within the practice. And if you're the only one there, if you're dealing with consultations, sometimes a coordinator is even in the procedure itself, and you're also tasked with following up with these leads, the web leads often get put on the back burner. So it's just a great way to kind of evaluate what's happening at your practice. So we just created a summary of a few different scenarios that we saw at the practice level. You can see here, an email was sent on February 27th to a practice. We got a follow-up on March 1st. We responded with days for availability and got no follow-up at all, which I'm sure most practice owners would feel like that's an unacceptable response, especially seeing the data from the MIT lead response study when they're saying you should respond within an hour. Another scenario, we did an email on February 18th. We got a personal email the next day. It's a little bit better. Did get an email response back, and then got some promotional emails. And then this third scenario, they filled out a self-evaluation form, got a template that said congratulations, but then there was no further follow-up from there. So it's really just an opportunity to evaluate what's happening within your practice and see if there's opportunities for OptiCall to help or just create awareness on how important that is. Looks like we've got some questions coming in, so we'll start to wrap this up here, and we'll stay online to field these questions for a little bit.
Perfect.
One of the first questions that came through is how do we schedule with Capture? So that's a great question. On our software, we actually have a web-based calendar, and it syncs up with MDprospects. MDprospects is currently integrated with iMedicWare and NextGen. I'm not sure if you guys have plans to integrate with other calendars in the future. I'm sure you do. And
all of them.
We also have another partner that does online scheduling that has integrations to about a dozen practice management softwares in the industry. But some practices might want to, like, depending on what capacity we're supporting them, like we're just handling the after hours appointments, it might make sense to just start with what we call a block calendar, and we notify you in real time as soon as those appointments are booked. The next question we have is about pricing for the Capture program. We actually charge $750 a month as a subscription fee, and that includes all of our hours of availability. So that's at 8:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday, and from noon to 6 Saturdays and Sundays. That's, I don't have my calculator in front of me, but it's like, I want to say $6 an hour for just the availability. I don't think you're going to find anybody that you can pay legally to be available that many hours at that rate. And then we charge $10 per lead, not per communication. So when we showed that flow chart earlier, I'll just jump back to it, that includes all of these touch points. And we wanted to create a pricing structure that wasn't based on conversions, because there's a lot of variables that are out of our control as far as where the lead source is coming from, the pricing of the practice, and reviews and patient experience, a lot of things. So we found that that's the right number currently. Actually, that's what we call our introductory pricing. So if you guys are interested, I'd encourage you to check it out before June to lock in that introductory pricing at $10 per lead. But it seems to be a great value for the practices that are on the program right now. With some of our clients, the feedback that I get is they've seen about a 20% increase in their web consultations, at the same time freeing up time for their staff. One particular practice generates about 200 leads per month, where we've clocked 40 hours of what I consider hard labor. So we've actually saved their team 40 hours of like on-task work, where they're on the profile, logging the calls and following up with these individuals. So in order for it to be a good fit, it has to work for everybody. It should be a good return on investment for the practice, a better patient experience, enhanced reporting, extended hours of coverage. We even have bilingual counselors. So hopefully that helps. One person asked about MDprospects, Michelle. They want to know, how do I know if I'm maximizing the features on my MDprospects software? Can you answer that?
A good way to know is if you log into your MDprospects and you have reports set up, are you looking at your reports? And just look at like the last 5 leads in your MDprospects, open them up and see, are you sending them messages, direct messages, using comments? Have any of the drop downs been changed to anything? But honestly, a really easy way is email help@mdprospects.com and ask us that question, and we'll tell you what features you might not be taking advantage of. If you send it to help@mdprospects.com, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Tess or Nicole or Robin. So one of them will reach back out to you and make sure that you're utilizing it to its fullest for whatever package you have of MDprospects.
Great. And actually, that's one of the survey questions. I was going to say, if they need additional support, that's on the survey. When we close out of this webinar here shortly, we'd love to get your feedback. And there's an offer for if you need additional training on MDprospects, if you'd like the web response assessment from OptiCall, if you'd like a copy of the MIT lead response report, or if you'd like the medical marketing outlook that we touched on earlier, we're happy to send all that information out to you.
Perfect. And the best way to know if you're optimizing your MDprospects is if your team feels confident in their use and they're going in there and touching leads hourly. Then if you're answering your leads hourly, you're already off to a great start. But definitely check out what else you're doing on there and just make sure you're using all your tools.
Well, fantastic. I appreciate everyone's time today. We'll be sending out a follow-up email with our contact information. We appreciate your feedback, and please let us know if we can be a resource for anything. And thank you for this opportunity, Michelle.
Yeah, it's always great talking to you, Dylan. It's fun to do this with you.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.